Each summer, thousands of confused students in the USA endure post-degree future. For many of them, the toughest challenge revolves around the so-called advanced placement. In theory, even completing their degree was a challenging task. The fight to get into American colleges is now so competitive that more and more kids are being pushed into undesirable universities.
The editors of the program inevitably focus on moments they think will engage the audience. After all, that's their brief. They're in the business of audience ratings, and their inclination is to concentrate on moments of conflict and drama. For me, this is exploitation, because I'm sure that some of the disruption is occurring solely for the benefit of the project.
You are a student representative at the University Union. The union has been asked to get the views of other students at the college on the current university course structure. You have been asked to write a report for the dean outlining the benefits and drawbacks of proposed changes. Make sure to add the remarks from the faculty members as well while completing your report.
Flight simulator machines are used in the training of airline pilots. Members of the public can now sample the experience simply by the use of virtual reality. Although you never leave the ground, while sitting in the simulator cockpit, the artificial intelligence makes it feel realistic. Your logical mind keeps telling you that it's not for real, but something deep in your subconscious mind responds to the sensory environment.
The exhibition is devoted to bridges of different types and illustrates the significance of these structures. It brilliantly captures the vitality of the river as an urban artery. The inclusion of a mixture of both familiar and less familiar bridges helps to hold your interest as you make your way round. But anyone hoping to come away with a logical history of the bridge from an architectural perspective will be disappointed.
It has long been possible to modify the appearance of the precious metals such as gold by adding a layer of another material, such as an alloy. For example, variation is made, what is known as rose gold, by adding copper. Nanotechnology department at Monash University have discovered the way to produce gold and silver simply by making microscopic alterations in the surface that affect the way the material reflects light.
There is an uncertainty in using petroleum as a future resource, despite focusing on the major benefit of a very advanced infrastructure already in place. The drawbacks from the perspective of the environment are patently obvious: harm to public health by emissions in exhaust fumes. The carbon emissions are linked to respiratory problems, and cost precious ecosystems from oil spills and seepage.
Multitasking is precious and welcome skill by many, but not according to a recent study done at the University of New England. It claims that employees are spending a considerable amount of their time in futile efforts as they multitask. It also argues that they could be just better off switching between the various tasks. This was the most awarded case study that will improve workplace efficiency.
Culture is a term for which it is very difficult to give a precise meaning. The word means so many different things to different people, so devising a single acceptable definition is more problematic than may be first thought. The idea of culture as something shared is inherently complex. Even people neighboring each other may actually have as many differences as similarities.
A few geothermal power plants depend on dry steam reservoirs, which produce steam but a little or no water. In these cases, the steam is piped up directly to provide the power to spin a turbine generator. The first geothermal power plant, constructed at Iceland, was of this type, and is still producing electricity today.
Tea, the hot drink, has an interesting story. The great popularity of tea lasted for centuries. In the late 17th century, the UK increased trade with other countries that made such luxuries as tea cheaper, and more easily available to the ordinary person. As a result, people started to drink it at home. Tea became the most staple drink around the world.
The main problem is that people often choose a career for the wrong reasons. For example, some people follow in the footsteps of their parent, either entering the same trade or profession, or inheriting the family business. Others make exactly the opposite decision, either out of a fierce desire for independence, or simply to get away from home or family.
Roman writers and orators began to expand their imaginative and intellectual horizons, and refine the Latin language through the study of Greek literature. Early Roman literature had been basically of two kinds: the recording and examination of public life and behavior through life stories of famous men, and the particularly Roman art of satirical comedy and drama.
Jackets didn't become fashionable for casual wear until the 1850s. The loose straight cut came in about the 1860s. The jacket was derived from the short jacket worn by boys and working men, and in the age of mass production and ready-made suits, its simple style was easier to produce than the tailored coat. The most favorite patterns for trousers were strong stripes and checks.
When societies were still mostly rural and agricultural, waste dispersal was hardly an issue, partly because people tended to make use of everything and partly because there was plenty of space to bury rubbish. It was when societies became predominantly urban and industrious that problems arose, mainly to do with wealth. City authorities had a hard time trying to find effective ways of getting rid of all the rubbish.
Computer viruses have been a reality of life at least since the 1980s, if not before. They can cause companies to lose hours of working time, and they can also spread panic among computer users everywhere. There are, however, several distinct types of computer infection, all loosely referred to as viruses, and they each work in a slightly different way.
An evolving group may have reached a stage at which it had an advantage over other groups and was able to exploit new niches in nature. Climate change may also have produced a spurt, as might the extinction of other groups or species, leaving many niches vacant.
Since the 1960s, the human population has roughly doubled and it is likely to rise by another third by 2030. This will of course lead to increased demands for food, water, energy, and space to live, necessarily putting us in competition with other species, and, if the past is anything to go by, with obvious results.
The fact that a book can be downloaded from almost anywhere in the world has blurred the lines between author, reader, format, and distribution, and this has caused some head-scratching at some of the world's biggest publishing companies. Such companies must adapt, and quickly, to the new market, but many are nervous of the risks and often shareholders are not willing to break new grounds.
How do we measure efficiency? To economists, or to a certain type of economist, it is simply a question of profitability, even when it concerns what most people consider a social provision, such as public transport. What is lost when railway lines and bus routes to small, out-of-the-way communities are cut in the name of efficiency? Perhaps time management is the answer.
The sad truth is that happy sounds are infectious. Now comes research that at least partly explains why. It was published this week in the Journal of Neuroscience. A British research team played various sounds, including laughter, to people who were having their brains scanned by a functional MRI machine. All the sounds activated the premotor cortical region of the brain. That area prepares facial muscles to move. This is a marine biological station with a history of over 60 years. Some of you might know Woods Hole or Puget Sound Biological Station. This place is a place like one of these. Take care of this place and protect the possibility for the continuation of our peaceful research. You can destroy the weapons and war instruments, but save the civil equipments for Japanese students.
Dr. John Ratey is a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. In his book about learning and the brain, he says that we need to exercise our bodies to improve our minds. Exercise doesn't just increase important brain chemicals, it also helps our brain grow. Ratey says the cells in our brains are connected through leaves on tree-like branches, and exercise causes those branches to grow.
To me, this theory of multiple intelligences makes a lot of sense. Just because you can't solve math problems or score well on tests doesn't mean you aren't intelligent. Maybe your intelligence just comes in a different form. And maybe Professor Gardner has just scratched the surface. Maybe all individuals are intelligent. We just haven't found a way to recognize and measure their intelligence.
New research has finally identified the smell of money. Well, the smell of loose change, anyway. You know that metallic smell that you sometimes perceive if you've got a big handful of coins? Researchers from Virginia Tech recently figured out that the smell, which we may think of as iron-y, is, ironically, completely unrelated to the metal in change. Iron atoms are absent from the stuff being smelled.
Today, many of us live lives with very little movement. We drive cars or ride trains to work. Many of us sit at desks all day and then return home to sit on our couches and watch TV. More and more researchers are showing that increasing your movement will increase your brain power. In one research study, a group of children ran for 30 minutes, 3 times a week.
Have you ever wondered why North America and Europe are always shown at the top of maps, while South America and Australia are always at the bottom? Is there a reason to associate north with up and south with down? If not, then why is the world always depicted in maps this way? Take a look at the upside-down map on this page to get an alternative view of the world. How does it make you feel?
Productivity is increased when people take at least a 15-minute break every couple of hours. But the key is to take a break that actually allows the mind to rest. That means no scrolling through social media or reading the news. Instead, be as deliberate with your downtime as you are with your work. For example, Darwin loved taking walks in nature for his breaks. And don't shy away from naps.
If you look at a map of the world to count countries, what you actually see is the political view of the map maker. There's a famous quote that goes, "The map is not the territory," which means we should never confuse symbols of reality with reality itself. We have to remember that when using a map, we are, of course, just looking at someone else's depiction of reality.
One study of 272 premature babies showed that vital signs could be improved through interactive sounds and music therapy. Music isn't only beneficial for babies. Studies show that music is able to ease pain, enhance blood vessel function, reduce stress and depression, and boost the immune system in adults too. Music also helps elderly people with Alzheimer's disease and dementia to recall memories and emotions. It can even help them make new memories.
Now, there's been some research that has come out in the last 5 years or so that suggests there may be a danger to cell phone usage, especially in children whose brains are very susceptible to this kind of radiation. So if you are using a cell phone, I think you should consider using it on a speakerphone or getting a special headset that allows you to talk with a phone away from your head rather than next to it. For thousands of years, turmeric has been used as a dye, a spice, and a medicine in Southeast Asia, India, and the Middle East. It has long been known for its health properties, but recently, Western scientists have discovered just how powerful of a medicine turmeric really is. It can help prevent cancer and Alzheimer's disease, reduce inflammation, lower cholesterol, improve our liver function, and more. An earthship is made from natural and recycled materials like tires, cans, bottles, earth, used wood, and plastic. Also, they are off-the-grid homes, meaning that they do not need to rely on public utilities like electricity, which is usually generated with fossil fuels or nuclear power. The burning of fossil fuels leads to pollution and global warming, while nuclear power plants can be highly poisonous if they leak. Well, one way to increase your contact hours with English that you can actually understand is through a practice called extensive reading. The idea is that you choose books to read that are very easy to understand, and you then read lots and lots of them. For most learners, this involves using graded readers. That is, books written using the most common English words for people who are not yet fluent at English.
Daniel remembers receiving a book on counting when he was 4. Where others saw numbers, he saw images. To Daniel's mind, each number had a shape, a color, and a texture of its own. Neurologists call this condition synesthesia. For example, 89 meant snow to Daniel, and the number 6 meant sadness.
Breathing techniques have also helped people deal with past trauma. Soldiers suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, are usually treated with medication, but the recovery rates are low. One study on the effects of yoga and breathing practices in veterans had impressive results. PTSD, anxiety, and insomnia decreased significantly in just 1 week.
The deciding factor isn't actually whether the people are similar. What matters is whether they see themselves as similar. Those who thought their partners were similar tended to have more satisfying relationships. Perhaps that's why Saeed and Marina work well together. At first glance, they may seem very different, but they see their similarities. People who anxiously attach to others, however, either want a partner who is the exact opposite or one who will attach right back. So it's a mixed bag. Differences between partners can create a tension of opposites, which can stimulate relationships. But similarities can bring people together and keep them together. At the time of their interview a few years back, they had been together for 2 years.
When you can just enjoy the story, then you can forget about the language. And then guess what? You're exposing your mind to many different English patterns over and over again. And if you see a new vocabulary word, you just skip right over it and infer the meaning. You'll see it again anyway. You don't actually need a dictionary. You simply internalize these vocabulary words and sentence patterns. So maybe you are not obese, but are you overweight? Simply being overweight increases your risk of diseases like stroke, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. One of the easiest ways to find out if you are overweight or not is to measure your body mass index, or BMI. It's really easy to do. You just use your height, weight, age, and gender for a simple calculation.
For Australians, the bush means the countryside, outside the major cities and towns, and the outback is a very remote area far from the major cities. For many years after the European settlement of Australia in 1760, people believed that there was an inland sea in the centre of the continent. Thus, they took a boat with them and spent about a year exploring the outback.
Did you know? Graffiti hails from the Roman Empire and ancient Greece. In modern times, spray paint and marker pens are now mostly used as graffiti materials. In many countries, marking or painting property without the landowner's permit is an offense. Many times graffiti utters social and political messages, and a whole type of art is based on spray-painted styles.
From out-of-work accountants to newly graduated computer nerds, the present economic downturn has hundreds of people turning to volunteer work. Their reasons vary, but include keeping up their skills and filling in their time, as well as keeping their spirits up. The vast majority of them just need a boost of experience to get that wheel turning. Just a matter of time, and they will start earning huge sums of money.
Cell phone users, succumbing to the temptations and traps of the next generation of smartphones, are increasingly becoming victims to the phenomenon known as bill shock. The popular new phones such as the Androids provide easy, one-touch access to the internet and social networking sites that can be far more costly than the more conventional voice services.
Could you name 4 of your neighbors and know what their interests are? Good neighbors are not just the people who live next door. They may live down the road or be a member of your community. Help make your city friendlier and volunteer to organize a dinner, picnic, movie or other social outings with your neighbors during Know Your Neighbor Week.
If you are looking for enthusiastic and reliable employees for your business, you may have to look no further than your local community college. Many community colleges provide training in skills that are applicable to a variety of business situations. Students at these institutions may be trained in things like bookkeeping and basic accounting, sales and marketing, and data management.
Do you often find yourself feeling sluggish mid-morning? Do you reach for coffee, a sugary soda, or a candy bar in order to keep going? Unfortunately, this scenario is all too common. Walk into any office around 11 o'clock in the morning and you are likely to see desks littered with candy bar wrappers and empty cups. Contrary to what you may think, this is not due to heavy morning workloads.
Sweden is to take the biggest energy step of any advanced Western economy by trying to wean itself off oil completely within 15 years, without building a new generation of nuclear power stations. The attempt by the country of 9 million people to become the world's first practically oil-free economy is being planned by a committee of industrialists, academics, and others, who will report to Parliament in several months.
Some people think hobbies are just a waste of time, but they offer more than just fun. Hobbies can provide an escape from our fast-paced society, keep our minds and our bodies active and relaxed, and help us stay connected with others. Through hobbies, we can gain knowledge and stay interested in the world around us. So why not make yourself happy by starting a hobby that you'll enjoy?
Readers searching for precise and comprehensive guidance on how to be a good manager may find the writer's message to be a little too ambiguous. Managers who are irritable by nature may wish to take a different strategy. Be yourself, however, is unquestionably sound counsel for anybody aspiring to lead tens of thousands of people. Or, for that matter, anyone who just wants to live a happy life.
Wall Street people are an elite club of billionaires, movie producers, .com professionals, and occasional astronauts. Between them, they hope to change the face of scientific research, apart from influencing the stock markets. With money and influence, a team of the 25 strong among them, deciding to launch a series of multi-million-dollar prizes to accelerate scientific breakthroughs that otherwise might be decades away.
Walkers, bikers, and other trail supporters have banded together to support an ambitious project, a 2,600-mile traffic-free path connecting towns on the east coast from Sydney to Melbourne. This concept for an urban alternative to the extremely popular Blue Mountain Trail, which was launched barely 10 years ago, is fast becoming a reality. And it will be easily identified by the public through signage, maps, users' guides, and common services, etc.
Ultimately, scientists want to know how young infants are able to acquire and master the intricacies of language, which is a challenging task for even the most powerful computers and adult brains. Scientists are baffled as to why a child's vocabulary and comprehension of language suddenly expands at the age of 18 months. One theory is that youngsters begin storing the sounds and meanings of words as soon as they are born.
Many people enjoy looking at vividly colored flowers and the butterflies that visit them throughout the summer months, but few of us think about what the butterflies perceive. A few evolutionary scientists have pondered this topic and discovered a probable, and, if true, startling relationship between the evolution of color vision in butterflies and humans via study.
Why is hydrogen fuel such a great idea? In a word, it is clean. At present, the industrialized countries of the world depend on fossil fuels, natural gas, oil, coal, for almost 90% of their energy. When fossil fuels are used, they produce an overwhelming amount of air pollutants and carbon dioxide, the gas that most scientists blame for global warming.
Mold, a rotting disease that affects strawberries and many other delicate fruits, is a problem. Although the fungus mostly affects fruit, infections begin in the blossoms. Spraying the blooms with a fungus called trichoderma is one successful treatment. This bacterium kills the mold in the flowers before the fruit berries develop, but it has no effect on the fruit itself.
Many individuals are terrified of handling spiders because they believe they might be poisonous. Despite the fact that virtually all spiders can generate venom, only a few species create dangerous bites, and even fewer cause death. Spiders have a low mortality rate when compared to other poisonous animals. In Australia, during a typical year, 12 people are harmed by bees, 10 by wasps, 14 by snakes, and only 6 by spiders.
During the Middle Ages, the internal combustion engine had to wait until a fuel could be combusted inside before becoming useful. The use of gunpowder was attempted but failed. Gunpowder carburetors are still difficult to come by. Coal gas was produced by heating coal in a pressure vessel or boiler in the early engines. During the year 1850, a Frenchman designed the first functional gas engine. His single horsepower engine was big, heavy, and guess what? Noisy.
Ants come in over 8,000 different species. They may be found all throughout the world, however, they favor warmer conditions, and their size ranges from 2 to 25 millimeters. They have a 4-stage life cycle: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. They live for 8 to 10 weeks. The workers are sterile females who labor in the nest, while the bigger ones, the warriors, protect the colony.
Drinking water can come from either groundwater sources via wells, or from surface water sources such as rivers. Nationally, 80% of water systems use a groundwater source, but 66% of people are served by a water system that uses surface water. This is because large metropolitan areas tend to rely on surface water, whereas small and rural areas tend to rely on groundwater. In addition, 10 to 20% of people have their own private wells for drinking water.